ልጅ መከታዬ ክንዴ ትከሻ አንተነህ ወንድሜ አንተነህ ዘመዴ ከምንም አይከዳ ጀግና ይበገሬ ለማተሙ ማች ነው ሲፈጠር ጎንደሬ ክሩ አይበጠስም ያሰረው መስቀሉ ልክ እንደ ገብርዬ ታማኝ ነው በቃሉ ከገብርዬ እምነቱን ከሰጀግንነቱን ተቀብሎ ጎንደር ያውቃል ማንነቱን አይፈሩም ጎንደሬ ልክ እንደ አባታቸው በራስ መተማመን ድፍረት ውርሶቸው ናናናና ረናናናና ናናናና ረናናናና አትሙትን አልወድም ጎንደር አይደለም ወይ ከፊት የሚቀድም ባላባት ኩሩ ናቸው ባላባት ኩሩ ናቸው የኖራል ዘላለም ተከብሮ ስማቸው እንዳነ ወረ እንዲያ እንዳነ ወረ እንዲያ ቀብራራው ጎንደሬ ይለያል ከወዲያም ዘርት ሆነ እናቱ ለምየ ኢትዮጵያ ነህንናና እኔ ደግሞ ሞትለ ካሳን እንደገና በ44ቱ ታቦት አጌጣ ተዋበች ጎንደር በጥምቀቱ ያያት ታስገናለች ልሂድ ቤተ እስራኤል ከኢየሩሳሌም እምነትሽ እምነቴን ደብሮን ለሰላለም ነህንናና 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 ነህንናና
Thank you. That was the Ethio girls. Thank you so very much for that entertainment.
And thank you all for joining us. My name is Damien Angelides, and it is my pleasure to formally welcome you to the 8th annual Open Hearts Big Dreams Dinner Auction. I would like to take a moment to thank all the volunteers that are here, because without them, we couldn't do any of this. So, one more round of applause. Unfortunately, our host for the night, Tisita Asefa, was called away on a matter that came up last second, so you get me. Thank you. Not sure if it's a trade up, but we'll see. So now on to the most important matter of the evening, the dessert. As you all saw as you were entering, we have a lovely array of desserts out there. And if in case you didn't know, this evening we have a dessert dash. It's quite simple. There's a sheet in the middle of your table, and in it each person can put in an amount to donate. Then you elect a captain. The captain tallies up the totals and chooses a runner. Okay? When it is time, we'll start reading off the table numbers in order of who donated the most, and then your runner has to dash to get dessert. And I'd like to emphasize dash, because if you don't hurry, you might miss out on the dessert of your choice. With that being said, I'd like to take a quick moment to thank our board and our advisory board. If you could stand up, please. Let's give a round of applause. I'd also like to thank our gold sponsors who donated $1,000 or more. And then now I'd like to thank our silver sponsors who donated $500 or more. And all of our other donors, we really appreciate your help. I'd like to take a moment to thank our in-kind sponsors. and all of our table captains who purchased a table for us. Thank you very much. And now, Milu here has a poem he prepared specially for this event, and thankfully will get me off the stage.
So I have two poems I'm gonna recite. One I wrote especially for this event, and one I wrote when I was first introduced to Eleanor. This is the first one. The capital has been a new flower, just like petunias. Flowers bloom in our tulips, but we don't talk fluent. But the truth is, before the nooses, we were negooses. Like kings and queens building blueprints that's not conclusive. Dined with Ethiopians like Zeus did. No excuses. We make Nikes with fake swooshes to break bread on Sundays for that communion. We teach all the blues kids, swimming in muddy waters, just drown the elusive. Using toothbrushes like loose twigs, we don't make the news flicks. We, the original Israelis, have never been conquered. Where the streets back home look something like Compton. Defeated the mobsters just as dogs the mobsters. Not about the stars like the Dobsters, which Haile Selassie to the Rastas or a little kid that's raised by the robbers. Most illiterate. The skin color cinnamon, trapped in the village and living in for the kids again. See, this is how we penny pinch. Light the house with the coal, bend the love and code. Children of the indigo run the globe with the shine from the inner glow. We the African rose of the slum when the house made of mud and dung. The songs that we sung match the beats of our drums. In sum, we hum in the face of evils, trapped in the desert with desert eagles to build cathedrals, like Cleopatra's needle out Noxum, sipping moonshine until the moonshine on a bar stool. We rock jewels like rock monuments in Khartoum to Egyptian hieroglyphs on a cartouche. We are more than just destitute. Check the artifacts and dry clothes outside, no laundromat. More stolen facts and almanac with police armor with straps. We lift monuments with the lights of angels, but live to live in the star-spangled. Stock flows, gospels, and Gestapos in the alleys. From birth to the finale, we rock gabbies and move to Cali to start a family. Roads unpaved, never been enslaved. Tonic and out of cave, we move bread with the marmalade. Honey water and Chardonnay for when the carbon spray. We wait for the banquet and wonder where our banks went. I'm from the country where the pain is, where for 1 month the rain drips. One country, one world, one language, big dreams. This poem is entitled God's Forgotten Children. God's forgotten children who roam through unpaved roads carrying coffee in their insides with open eyes and empty stomachs. Slender skeletons shimmy shaking dust from the clutch of an empty hut. Little girls braiding imagination from their feet to their hairlines. A place where you could see a child thumb-sucking 13 months of sunshine from empty skylines. How can we not provide for those who ask for so little when we constantly beg for so much? With sun-kissed skin, so much laughter you thought they carried the wind, and just enough God and the smiles to baptize our sins. If it is a joy we are after, then the tragic and comic communicate through laughter. This be an ode to the dream that tucks itself in the reverent bed shades of the bed Nile, fitting dreams into time capsules that were never intended to shed sand. Children, in the crevices of back alleys roams the frequencies of an orphan's lullaby that imprints marathon footprints marching for the distance. Children, carrying postage stamps in tin buckets so they can throw love letters down the throat of a dormant God who does not wish to respond. A young child, so dark and tall, you'd mistake him for Akeem. His dream is not the NBA, but food for the next day. And with a body, worn out and broken like a promise, his eyelashes outstretched like arms waiting to grasp the world, as if to say, examine the archaeological remains. Because with an ongoing civil war that is far from civil, Lucy is not the only skeleton dug beneath barren soil examined with the chisel. So while the newscasts mundane talk and brush over anecdotes of death in Africa's eat, a child circumscribes city plains with eulogies. The God-forgotten land that had the most humble stake in her rigidly loose faith, mothered her firstborn with absolutely no mistakes, a name once extended to the entire African plain, the land of the burnt face. Ethiopia, the first place the land a child was ever raised, the first ground a human being laughed, ate, wept, slept, and prayed, the only nation that resembles a crooked heart trying to skip itself to the nearest body of water. The only land I claim citizenship without a visa or any regrets. So forget American Express, Ethiopia, never leave home without it.
Life would have gone had she been literate. With her charisma and her storytelling prowess, her generosity and optimism, there's no doubt in my mind that she would have been a leader, a community activist, an inspirational speaker, and she certainly would have been an author of some amazing stories. When we were in the refugee camps, my mother would often ask me to read letters to her from her family. I used to wonder why she wanted to hear the same things read to her over and over again. I later realized she just wanted me to practice reading, and that was all she had to offer me in print. And after we had immigrated to the US, she would ask me to read to her more letters from her family, and she would dictate letters that I needed to write for her. 36 years later, I still know how to read and write Tigrinya. And that was the only training I had, aside from learning my letters. My mother had laid down the foundation for learning for me. Fast forward to a few months ago, someone on the Microsoft network where I worked asked for volunteers to help translate children's books from English to Tigrinya. I immediately became protective of my time and began to file that email in the "no time for this, just donate money and walk away" folder. But something about children's books in Tigrinya caught my eye and tugged at my heart. I never saw children's books in my language when I was growing up. In fact, I never saw any children's books until I was 9 years old. Why? Because they didn't exist in the refugee camps. But at 9, I was a new immigrant attending Jackson Elementary School in Lubbock, Texas. I had all the children's books that my heart desired at my fingertips. Access to children's books accelerated my reading fluency. Within a few months, I had learned written and spoken English, and the school library couldn't keep up with my reading appetite. I was nonstop from there. That story-hungry refugee little girl, raised by an amazing mother, ended up graduating from Stanford University and stands before you tonight. I have no doubt in my mind that access to oral stories and to printed stories with pictures has a magical impact on children. That is why I support Open Heart's Big Dreams. I believe in the power of the service they provide. OHBD has opened my heart, and I hope it does the same for you. Thank you.
Wow. Just wow. I always want to promise my kids I'm not going to cry when I'm up here, but I can't seem to ever manage to keep that one. It's really hard to imagine never learning to read. I think it's even more hard to imagine learning to read without holding a book. But that's true for many kids in the world, and that's why we're here today. So, I want to take you back to last year. Last year, it was December 2017. We just lost my dad, and my mom got cancer. It was a really hard year for the family. But coming together and doing something for kids is very healing. And we have really good news. My mom's doing great. Thank you. And my dad, who was an avid, lifelong reader, including reading to his grandkids, I'm sure is really proud of her and of the efforts here today. The picture on the left is the last time we were here at the Northwest African American Museum, the very first year of Open Heart's Big Dreams. Believe it or not, that is your fill-in MC. reading to his little sister, and I think we can safely say we have all grown just a little. Before we jump into talking about Ready, Set, Go books, which is by far our biggest and most ambitious project, I wanted to take a couple moments to talk about some of our other pilot model programs. For us, model programs are areas where we identify a gap or we see an innovative approach that we invest funds and expertise, we can greatly scale the impact. And two, we're really proud to share that we participated in this year is a girls' coding camp for 6 weeks in Uddis. And as you can imagine from hearing Alma's, lots of girls may not get a chance to go to school, much less learn about technology, and we know how important technology is. And the second is transition scholarships for deserving high schoolers that have one last hurdle before they can attend a local university. And the coding class we did with Labawi, who's an amazing organization, and I know we have some of the members here, so thank you. And Project Ethiopia, whose executive director is here, Sue Wilkes. So please give them a round. We're excited to expand both those next year. Ready, Set, Go Books has been an adventure in so many different ways. It really is amazing where reading can take you. So the Ready, Set, Go book projects really has two pieces. There's creating and publishing the books, and our team has created 45 titles that are published on Amazon, available in the US and the rest of North America, as well as Europe, in print-on-demand and digital formats. We actually also have our own author page, which I don't know about you, but that really is thrilling for me. And we also are proud to share that the Seattle Public Libraries are carrying our books and are looking to carry all the new ones coming forward. And the second piece, which the creative team sets up for us, is the digital files that actually need to get printed in Ethiopia. And if you look at our books are colorful. If you had a chance to hang out with the book team, they catch your eye, and that is by design. They also are full of details about Ethiopia. We want kids to see themselves in these books. And they're even for the youngest reader or the newest reader who actually may be a grown-up. So after we create and publish the books, the adventure does not end. As Malcolm here can attest from Ethiopia Reads, the goal is to get those books in the hands of kids in Ethiopia. So another one of our model programs was with Ethiopia Reads to print locally and distribute to libraries and schools in Ethiopia. And we're really proud to share that thus far this year, we have printed and distributed 70,000 copies. Yes. In 4 different languages, including one in the South where it's the first time that those individuals got to see their language in print, which is just amazing. And we have exciting news that by the end of the year, we will hit the goal of 100,000 books for 2018. But that's not enough. It's great and we're proud, but there's 3 million first graders in Ethiopia. They all deserve books. So for 2019, our goals are similar. We need to create more books. We have a goal to create 50 unique titles in 2019. In 2018, we had 45, but many of them were in progress. This will be 50 from scratch. We also need to print and distribute more books, and our goal is at least 100,000 additional books printed and distributed in various Ethiopian languages, as well as training the teachers. If you've never had books before, you don't know how to use books when you're teaching the kids to read. There are kids who've never held a book in their hand. We can change that. But we can't do it alone. We need help. So we have these goals, and we're asking you to come with us on this adventure. We have a focus on getting more Ethiopian illustrators, authors, and artists. If you know those, you know where to find me. We want to train more teachers and ultimately create a reading and writing children's book culture in Ethiopia and maybe Eritrea too. Our team, somebody asked me, do you have a really big team? No, we have a small team of what we like to call ordinary people. Just regular folks, people like you and me and everybody in the room. But we believe we can do extraordinary things. And we have a number of the book team in the room, so I want to take a moment to recognize some of them. But before I do that, I would like to let you know at least 300 different individuals helped create those books. There were kids, there were artists, there were illustrators, there were translators, there were authors. And today we have with us our 3 creative directors. They're kind of keeping it in the family. Jane Kurtz, Caroline Kurtz, and Kenny Rasmussen. If they will stand for a moment. The production side is led by an ex-Microsoft program manager, because everybody needs a program manager, right? She's not with us today, but Kate Baer, who's part of the production team, is, and so I'll ask for her to stand. And then I would like anyone in the room who has authored, illustrated, proofread, contributed in some way to Ready, Set, Go books, if you could just stand for a moment so we can thank you. So next we want to share a video, because it's hard to really, without the words of someone who's been there like Alma's, to really help you understand the impact that these books can have. So we'd like to show you a brief video to take you to Ethiopia and some of the places that created the books. So with that, we will play our video.
Show that adults and kids reading together make learning to read go faster. The problem in Ethiopia has been that children are drilled on the alphabet, and then all they have to read are their textbooks. They never have anything to use to practice reading. During the WEMA distribution, I watched educators sound out the words on the covers of the books. One of them then turned to me in astonishment and said, "It says count for me in my language."
This is an opportunity for serving my own people of tomorrow, and I do it with a heartfelt pleasure.
I basically didn't know anything about Ethiopia till my teacher told us we were doing a project for our immigration unit.
I want to visit Ethiopia and see a stork someday.
Me too!
These storks travel something like 4,000 miles from Oslo to land in Ethiopia.
I've had a thrill getting to see Ready, Set, Go books distributed in several different Ethiopian languages. I've also watched children react to the Ready, Set books. They're drawn to them like magnets. Colorful pictures that show familiar life around them in Ethiopia. Words that make sense after they're slowly sounded out because those words are in their language. Short sentences that don't feel intimidating. These things draw children into reading. Right now, about 3 million first graders in Ethiopia are being taught to read with no books to practice that reading skill. Together we can change that. Join us for one of the biggest adventures on earth, Adventures in Literacy.
So we have big, audacious goals. We told you some of them. We'd like to increase the literacy rate of a country with your help. We think we can. Our inspiration is this young lady now. I can't say little girl anymore because she's growing up on me. And she'd like to say a few words. Yes, she's got the eyes, huh? She'd like to say a few words to you today.
Hello, Salam. My name is Layla Marie Fasika Angelidis. I recently won a reading award with a quote on it that said, "Reading is dreaming with your eyes open." Our Ready, Set, Go books have helped me dream my way into the Rift Valley, where 23 types of flamingos can only be found there. They also helped me follow the happy herder and discover his secrets, and trick the runaway injera. But in Ethiopia, not all kids get the chance to learn to read. I view this gap as a big scary lion, or Mbasa. An Ethiopian proverb says that when spiders unite, they can tie up a lion. So, if we unite, like the spiders, we can tie up this lion and make it so that all kids get the chance to learn to dream with their eyes open. So, like I said last year, give until it hurts, and then give a little more. Thank you. Amase ganaro.
Thank you.
One of you, the volunteers, and it's a great cause. I know there's many, many great causes in this world, and we're in tough times that hopefully will get better the next couple of years or so. And until then, we'll keep plugging along and beyond that. And once again, thank you all so very much for being here.
Just one last public service announcement. If you won, your things will be ready for you at checkout, and a heartfelt thank you from everyone here. You're welcome to stay for a few minutes and mingle, but thank you all, and your checkout items should be in the front. Take care.
በገሬ ለማተሙ ማች ነው ሲፈጠር ጎንደሬ ክሩ አይበጠስም ያሰረው መስቀሉ ልክ እንደ ገብርዬ ታማኝ ነው በቃሉ ከገብርዬ እምነቱን ከሰጀግንነቱን ተቀብሎ ጎንደር ያውቃል ማንነቱን አይፈሩም ጎንደሬ ልክ እንደ አባታቸው በራስ መተማመን ድፍረት ውርሶቸው na 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 na.
I'm
Well, I'm on the advisory board there, but I am a co-founder of the Labawi Academy, and I'm the executive director of it, even though it's an ADIS. And OHBD gave us a very generous grant to run a coding camp for girls this summer. Yeah.
I'm the creative director of the book project. So I'm a children's book writer, and I have written books for publishers here in the United States. I really wanted to create some books for children in Ethiopia, since that's where I learned how to read. And I am mostly the writer for a lot of the books, but I've also been trying to draw in some other writers. And then I try to find a lot of illustrators so that they can do the art to make my words come alive. Or sometimes people actually do the art first, and then I look at their art. That's how it happened with the Gondar books that I was telling you. I actually saw the art that the children had created, and then my sister and I wrote the text to go along with it. And then I'm the one that looks at how the art and the books can go together, how the words and the art go together. And I kind of supervise the first digital team that figures out how to make the books digitally ready. So I'm the head of the creative part, and then we turn it over to a production team in Seattle.
OHBD is an organization that I've been with which I've been involved for over 7 years. So usually I try to donate myself and help the organization raise funds. And whenever I travel to Ethiopia, I take books with me and distribute them in Ethiopia, visit the libraries that the organization has built, and so on and so forth.
I am one of the creative team for the Ready, Set, Go books. And my sister and I, mostly at this point, we write the stories more than anything else. Last year, we had a lot of work trying to figure out our systems. This year we got the systems down pretty well, and especially with Eleanor's work on systems with her team, the production went a lot faster. So that freed us up to do the creative work, which is wonderful.
I am in the advisory committee. Before it all started, Jenny Kurtz and myself, we were talking about books and how beautiful it is, and she's a writer. She had a project before that in Ethiopia, and we both had the same vision, and then we talked for hours. And the next year they were doing this fundraising. I was so excited, and I volunteered.
I'm a board member. Well, I know Eleanor, and I'm an Ethiopian, so they're doing a lot of things in Ethiopia, so I got excited about it, and we talked, and I said, okay, I'll help.
So I'm the board chair of Ethiopia Reads, which is a non-profit that's been working in Ethiopia for 15 years, building libraries, training librarians and educators, and providing books to children around Ethiopia, in every part of the country.
Well, Eleanor, who we all know, Angelides, she, a member of our board on our school worked with Eleanor at Amazon. And, he got us connected because she was so interested. She was at that time helping to raise funds for Ethiopia Reads. And we knew about Ethiopia Reads also, and so we all kind of got connected. And our school then, in fact, at this very museum was her very first event. I was remembering that. And our whole board came, and so we're very interested in supporting that. And then when she founded OHBD as a separate organization, she asked me to be on the advisory board.
Well, I've known Eleanor for a long time because I was a volunteer with Ethiopia Reads for about 20 years. So Eleanor used to raise money for Ethiopia Reads, and then when she decided to create her own nonprofit, she talked to me about whether I had an idea of something that I would like to do that I hadn't had a chance to do yet. And I said, well, I've been raising money for Ethiopia Reads, but I've never gotten a chance to put on my creative hat and do something creative. And she said, I think that's a really good project for Open Hearts, Big Dreams.
I got involved 7 years ago when the organization was It wasn't in existence, right? There was actually another organization called Ethiopia Reads, if you remember. So Eleanor was very much involved in that organization. So we got together at an event where we were raising funds for Ethiopia Reads. Then she continued to work with that organization for a long time, and eventually, as you know, she started her own organization, nonprofit organization, OHPD.
Well, Jane is my sister, and she and I created this idea. It was her brainstorm, it was her idea, but she knew she didn't want to do it alone, and she came to me and she told me her idea, and I thought, wow, that sounds interesting. That would be fun to do together, and that's how we started.
Reading was just part of my life, and when I was a little girl, my teacher, when I was in Qes Timurt Bet, gave me a book, and I still remember the title. It's Dafara Sanafu. It means Dafara is a boy, and Dafara Sanafu means Dafara the lazy boy. And I read the whole book in like a couple of hours, and my teacher, my family couldn't believe it. I still remember the story. The gist of the story is Dafara was a boy who have very rich parents, and they have spoiled him, and they never taught him anything, they never showed him anything, and they died. And he didn't like school, and they didn't worry about it. And then they both died, and then he was like penniless, and he was struggling in life. So wherever he went, when he saw children who are like true ones who are not going to school, he would tell them, please go to school. I don't want you to be like me. So that really was something which has left so much in me, and I became an educator too.
My life, I'm a teacher. I'm an artist. So as a teacher, you know, reading is very important, right? And also I'm also wrote a book, and I always think about reading and writing is very important, just like the art. So that got me really involved because I believe in reading, and kids who read always do a good job. And also it's good for you to read and know a lot of information, all that kind of stuff.
It wasn't my idea. I met an Ethiopian librarian at San Francisco Public Library who wanted to go home and open a library. And I kind of helped him, and it grew into Ethiopia Reads. Jane Kurtz and Johannes Georgis started it. We opened our first library in 2003 in Baklabet in Addis Ababa, a public children's library.
Well, when I was younger, there is a writer in English named Mary Renault, and she wrote historical fiction about ancient Greek times, and she was a big influence for me. She only wrote 5 books, and I read them all, so she was a big influence. But I have always loved reading, of course, and as an educator, of course, we know it's the most important thing to get children and students involved in reading.
Well, I learned how to read in Ethiopia. My mom hadn't even finished college yet when she and my dad went to Ethiopia to work, but she was such an avid reader, and that's how I learned to read, and that's how my sisters and my brother and I learned to read, was from watching our mother, who loved books. So her love of books rubbed off on me, and my whole life really has been about books. My grandchildren are Ethiopian American. Their mom is Ethiopian. And so she wasn't that used to the idea of reading with little kids, but I watched her reading with my grandkids. And so I can see that Ethiopians of a younger generation are starting to get that idea of how important books can be.
I was born and raised in Ethiopia. So I left Ethiopia when I was about 18 years old. And went to the Sudan and became a refugee there. And then I had an opportunity to come to U.S. about 30 years ago. And I drove a taxi cab here in Seattle for 5 years. And I put myself through school at the University of Washington. And then got a job at Microsoft. So I've been working at Microsoft for 22 years. So I'm a director at Microsoft, by the way. So speaking of books, the first time actually I remember myself reading books was at the University of Washington. Because back then, when I was going to school in Ethiopia, in Gondar, I don't even remember if we had a library, let alone reading books. So I don't even remember me reading books. So once I was exposed to the power of books as an adult at the University of Washington, then I started to think about how can I afford that opportunity to young people in Ethiopia, and got involved. So books actually not only have helped me become employed and get a job and live a good life, but also they have changed my perspective and they have widened my view about the world that we live in. So that's I mean, I can't even talk about it enough, how books have changed my life.
Oh my goodness, Janie and I were the two oldest in our family of 7 children, and we both became total bookworms at a very young age. We were both finishing our children's books at home in Ethiopia, where we learned to read at home. We finished our children's books and we started in on the adult book shelves of our home at very young age. At age 12, age 10, we were reading our parents' books, and in some cases we got books taken away from us because they were not appropriate for us to be reading. So we read everything we could, and when I first went off to boarding school, I was just amazed at the idea of a library. And the library was just one small room with a wall full of books, but one wall full of books. I read over 100 books that year.
It's like books are becoming like a garden in Ethiopia where there was bare and there was nothing. Now all of a sudden these beautiful quality books which we would spend lots of money here, and they're going to be in the hands of many children. It's going to be a blessing, and this minds of all our children is going to be formed, and we are going to have many intelligent children. Language is the key to the world, and now they are going to get language in the early ages, and language develops between birth to 6 years, and most of these books can be instrumental really to help children develop very well.
The story about this kid, his name is Lama, going to the market and bringing stuff. And when I was a kid, I read that book. And also there's another book I'm interested. It's like a children book. Small Tariq Namsale. It's got a lot of small stories in there. And I love that book too.
I read a lot. I think it helps with everything in life. When I was a child, my mother used to dump me in a public library when she went to work. So it wasn't a bad place to be. So I always thought it was a good. And I think my wife is Ethiopian, so I go to Ethiopia a lot, and I couldn't believe there was nothing to read. Really, almost no children's books at all, and I think it's a tragedy.
Amazingly, we have realized some of those dreams at our school, Labawi Academy. It's been amazing. We have students who come from homes without running water, without electricity, who are now attending top colleges in this country. Duke University, Swarthmore, Middlebury, NYU, incredible schools, and around the world, in India, also Ethiopia, in Abu Dhabi. It's amazing that students who are coming from this kind of poverty can achieve this way. So our dream is that what we're doing at Labawi Academy obviously is working, and so we want to expand that, and we want it to spread to all over Ethiopia and even Africa if possible.
Well, there's millions of kids in Ethiopia who are learning how to read but then don't have any books to read. And that's where I really hope Open Hearts Big Dreams will help fill in by producing these books that are colorful and interesting and in local languages. We know there's so many kids that will get excited about reading.
When I went to Ethiopia and I went to the libraries that were built through this organization, and I actually took some books and distributed those books to those kids in Ethiopia, I could see the excitement of these kids when they got their hands on these books. And you could see their eagerness to learn. And then, as I've told you earlier, I could see how that experience not only could change their individual lives, but it has a potential to transform Ethiopia and Ethiopians. So that's how I see the impact of this organization.
Well, I'm the one who got to take the first 900 books over and watch them be distributed to kids. And there were 5 people walking around the classroom snapping pictures with flash because, of course, the classrooms aren't very bright and the light is low. And those kids just couldn't even be distracted. They were so fascinated. These were the first children's books they had ever held. They were the first story books they had ever read. And the pictures were colorful and they were about Ethiopia. And those kids, I watched them turn pages. They would get to the end and they would flip quickly to the front and start again, reading again. So I just know that books, colorful books with stories in them, those are the fascinating things that make it worth reading. And those are things that kids are having the first chance to have in Ethiopia with these books.
My hope is a lot of people in Ethiopia are going to see the possibility, and this organization can also partner with so many, and books are going to be available for everyone in our children. We just heard today there were 3 million children who are ready for first grade, and these children are entering first grade without learning how to read. And now they will learn it, but they will struggle. But then if those children, the coming years, who are going to have books available for them in early ages, are going to have an easy time for education too. So my hope is we are going to have brilliant children all over the country.
Okay, in Ethiopia, like we know, we don't have a lot of libraries and a lot of schools that got a lot of books in their schools. So a lot of kids really always looking for books to read, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one problem most of the time, because there's not a lot of books. Kids are very eager to read. So when they read, they learn a lot, right? So if they don't read, there's always, they get secondhand information, right? Mm-hmm. If they read, they really educate themselves, learn a lot, and they will be good readers. And then when they get readers, they get writers. When they get writers, then they learn about the world, and the world would be a good place for us.
There are 50 million in Ethiopia under 18, and Ethiopia Reads has opened a lot of libraries, 80. But I think every year there are so many more children that I don't think the numbers who have access to books is decreasing. So the problem is much bigger, and I think Ethiopian people have to think, and in America and in Ethiopia have to think about this, because without books you can't learn very much.
Oh my goodness. Well, already the grant that we got this summer was to teach girls coding, and that already has had a huge impact in closing the gender gap, and it was very sophisticated. And they weren't just learning coding, they were learning coding and applying it to a project that they were interested in. So these kids are really getting prepared for today's world, and I would hope that we can continue to do that with support from OHBD.
Luckily, books stay around a long time. I mean, I still read books that were created, let's say, back in the 1950s when I was born, right? But if I discover it for the first time, it's a new book to me. So I do think the books will have a life that will go on and on and on. And adults sometimes buy books for their children that they love to read as children. So hopefully there will be that ripple effect in Ethiopia.
The message that I can transmit to them is reading books is not only for one to be able to read and write. but it's actually transformative. Through books, you can transform yourself into different areas, experience different lifestyles. You can dream, and you can widen your view of the world, and eventually not only it would transform your life, but it will help you to transform your country and your people. Sometimes people just, especially when we were kids, of course, as I told you, we didn't have books, but usually when you go to school and read, the immediate thinking is, oh, I'll go read this and study and get a grade and get a job. But as you grow and as you become an adult, you would start to realize that books are actually much more than that. So my message to them is, go read books for the sake of learning and expanding your horizon, and it will help you be a better person and a better citizen in the future.
Well, I assume that there will be some kids who would dream of writing books. There would be some kids who would dream of illustrating books. There would be kids who would use their reading skills or the creative skills to go on and do other wonderful things. But we've seen that there are always some children who just absolutely grab on to what school has to offer and go in amazing places, like Almaz, who was talking tonight about her experience as a young Eritrean girl. So those children are going to take advantage of what they have, and they're going to take it amazing places. Yeah. Well, whenever you have a gift, a God-given gift, a gift that you were created with, when you use it and when you use it for other people, it enriches you. You're giving something away, but you are actually becoming enriched. So it's just, there's just no downside to volunteering and using your gifts for other people. Sometimes we think we have to make sacrifices for other people, but the wonderful thing about using your creativity is that when you use your creativity for someone else, you actually become enriched as well.
Biggest dream for Ethiopia, I want them to have the opportunity that we have here. And kids are kids, everywhere, right? We adults, especially, we need to respect that. Kids has to be kids. To grow, need to go to school. So my dream is all kids go to school.
Well, I think they should all read to their children. They should try and get their children as many books as possible, and they should do a little bit to support organizations like Open Hearts, Big Dreams, or Ethiopia Reads, or even tell people who vote in Ethiopia, or if they have connections to government, because I think this will be solved when Ethiopian people start asking for more for their children.
I think that I would really like all kids to get the chance to read and read like me, so that would be nice. Take it slow. It doesn't matter how fast you read, just matters that you can read. Yeah. So just keep reading, because that will take you a long way.
መጪውን የኢትዮጵያን ሚሌኒየም ልክ እንደ አብሮ መብላት መጠጣታችን ለለውጥ ተጋግዘን በመስራት የሀገራችንን እድገት የምናይበት ጅምር እንዲሆን የእግዚአብሔር ቅዱስ ፈቃዱ ይሁን እላለሁ። መልካም በዓል፣ መልካም ጊዜ።